You might think you know where the American Revolution started, but you don't really know where it started until you come right here at this battlefield in North Carolina. This is Alamance, and this is really where the American Revolution started. We're going to tell you all about it here, and walk you around this field, and show you what there is to see out here in Alamance. On Sunday, the state parks out here in North Carolina are completely closed, except for the parts that you can access by pulling off on the side of the road. So we are actually in the main field right now, and there's a little wayside pull-off over there with a map of the battle that happened out here, and a lot of information about that fight. And here's a sign that talks about the monument that was erected out here, May 29th of 1880. There was a crowd of about 3,000 or 4,000 local citizens that came out here, along with some National Guardsmen and things like that, to dedicate this monument here. And here it stands today. So we're going to come up here and take a closer look at what we've got here for the monument. Now, it's not a large, grand monument like you would see at Gettysburg, but it is pretty neat looking to think that a monument would be dedicated here just a few years after the American Civil War. Dedicated to the Regulators out here in Alamance County, North Carolina. And just like it says on that monument behind me there, this was dubbed the first battle of the American Revolution. Even though a declared war really wasn't happening at the time. But on May 16th of 1771, there was a group of men called the Regulators out in North Carolina. And these Regulators had gripes, if you will, grievances, and they wanted to be heard by Tryon, who was in charge here in North Carolina. And they had basically gathered up like a militia. Tryon knew that this was happening, and he gathered up his army and started moving towards these Regulators. When he gets out here to these fields off in the distance, he sends men forward deployed to the area to talk to the militiamen out here, the Regulators, if you will. And he says to them, you know, surrender now or come under fire. Well, the Regulators emphatically send word back, fire. Fire if you dare. And so, of course, Tryon has no option. He has to come out here, being a part of the King's government, and he has to deal with the Regulators, if you will. The North Carolina men that are out here are standing by, and they're ready to fight. And a fight happens here. It actually turns out to be pretty significant for its time. Some of the factors that I've seen, something like 220 Regulators being wounded out here on this field, it's pretty big for an American Revolutionary War style battle, if you consider how many men are involved at the time. So we're going to continue to push around here, see some of the things they have. There's a couple monuments on the field, and we'll take some good shots of this field and let you see the place for itself. So interestingly enough, this sign here tells a real unique story about the monument that's directly out in front here. This is supposed to depict James Hunter at the top of this monument. And according to the sign that's out here, this used to be at Guilford Courthouse National Military Park. At the time, it was thought that that was an inappropriate place for this thing to be because James Hunter and Alamance had nothing to do with the Guilford Courthouse battle. But as early as 1937, the National Park Service continued to do the questioning of it, and they came up with a solution. They decided to move it here at Alamance when this place was dedicated, and a descendant of James Hunter, along with the state of North Carolina U.S. Department of Interior, moved it out here in 1962. So this is now the home site of this. Now on the sign here, some information here is pretty unique. It says research has shown the plaque dedicated to James Hunter is inaccurate because it provides information on 2 different James Hunters. Evidence indicates that James Hunter of Stinking Quarter and Sandy Creek was the Regulator leader. He did not have connections with the Hunter family from Beaver Island Creek. So there you go. History continued to correct itself long after the war, long after the battles, and this thing being placed roughly where it should have been placed, out here on this field for the Battle of the Regulators here in Alamance. So on this monument out here, there's a pretty striking placard on the side which shows a man on a barrel about to be hung from a tree. 12 regulators were condemned at Hillsborough, and then 6 were actually executed out here. James Few being one of them. And on this placard, it literally puts the words on there that came from James Few before he ends up dying. And he said, "Our blood will be as good seed in good ground that will soon produce 100-fold." This was at Hillsborough, North Carolina. The sign that's off in the distance over there tells a little bit of a different story, some different dates to it also. But again, the governor doing his job based on the rules and regulations at the time, because we were not the United States of America, we were part of British rule. So when these men, these regulators out here, were fighting against the government, they essentially are treasonous to that government. But because of what they did here, this was the start of the American Revolution, realistically. Years and years later, when North Carolina comes up with its own constitution, its own governing documents after the American Revolution, a lot of what the regulators talked about was actually enacted in that document. So a little bit of battlefield orientation so far. From what I can tell, the regulators would have been lined up along this road here, right in this area. And then there's a wooded area just across the other side there where they end up falling back after being hit real hard by the British soldiers or North Carolina militia. And once they're out here at this field, they come under fire, and Tryon's men come down this area, line up over here, and literally fire at the regulators, who then return fire. The regulators hit them pretty hard with their weapons, but of course they were no match for the soldiers that were out here that were trained and had better weaponry. And once they got hit hard, they fall back to this location over here, and they hold out for about a half an hour, essentially, until finally they had to run or give up. And that's exactly what happens. So this battle, it doesn't take very long out here, but really it's the kicking off point for a bigger thing. The American Revolution, when it starts, it's like a train running off the tracks. It starts a thing that eventually turns into the United States of America. Now, I'm not sure how far out in the woods this trail goes. So there's no maps out here, and there's no actual markers to tell you anything. On a Sunday, I guess it's kind of the risk you take walking out into these woods and trying to see how far you can get out here. So we're going to continue down this trail and see if we can find anything else out here on the Alamance Battleground that talks about the battle itself. If not, we'll flip it back around and we'll wrap this story up here pretty soon. So just past the small sign right there, it talks about the Regulators possibly having hand-to-hand combat out here during this scuffle in Alamance. And coming up on another one says Regulator Moment. After the battle, Governor Tryon claimed to have 9 men killed and another 61 wounded. The number of Regulator casualties is unknown due to the lack of records. Well, for it to be unknown, they definitely put the number on the big sign back there. I'll see if I can't find some more information and put a picture up on the screen here that gives a more accurate count of the casualties out here. At either rate, Alamance battle is nothing compared to an American Civil War battle. None of the Revolutionary War battles really were. The battles in the Revolution were very small compared to the American Civil War, and the casualty counts are going to be extremely low when you have a couple thousand or 15,000 men facing each other instead of 100, 150,000. And here's another sign. The first shot of the battle purportedly came from Tryon's militia and killed a captured regulator named Robert Thompson. Reports vary whether Tryon had Thompson executed or if he was shot while trying to escape. That's some amazing stuff. So now, based on yet another sign out here in the woods, it gives us a little bit more information. And it tells us that the fighting out here lasted for about 2 hours, and 45 minutes of that was essentially the Regulators taking cover in the woods and firing from the trees, or literally from the wood line itself, not from the actual treetops. But they're fighting out here, and some hand-to-hand combat breaks out, and then eventually they retreat. Well, during the retreat, more fighting is still happening. So that's all part of that 2 hours that they're talking about there. And here we go, another one. Governor Tryon's militia included infantry, artillery companies, as well as detachments of rangers and light cavalry at the Battle of Alamance. That's neat. Ever so often as we're walking out here in these woods, there's another tiny little sign. It gives a small portion of information about the battle here at Alamance. So it's real neat to walk these woods. We're going to continue pushing on until we stop running into signs. So here's another interesting sign with a little bit of information on it. And it says a big portion of the militia came from Orange County, where many of the Regulators were from. It goes on to say that 2 brothers actually fought on opposite sides. John Butler and William Butler fought on opposite sides of the battle. Again, another indication that this American Revolution that's about to kick off soon is really another civil war. These men are fighting each other for whatever reason. Some feeling loyal to the crown, others not wanting to choose the wrong side, and even further than that, others seeing what they consider to be an injustice in a government that's far-reaching and not representing its members the way it should. Before his appointment as governor of North Carolina, William Tryon served as an officer in 1st Regiment of Foot Guards. He fought in the 70 Years' War and was wounded in action during a raid at St. Malo, France. That's some more information out here in the woods in the middle of nowhere. I wish they had a map out there that told us what all was going to be coming up. This is pretty cool. So during the last portions of the American Civil War here in North Carolina, John W. Hinsdale of the Confederate Army actually wrote about being here at the battlefield for Alamance. It was really right around this area where they found out for the first time that Robert E. Lee actually surrendered when they were on their way to Greensboro. It obviously was demoralizing, and some men wrote that they couldn't believe it was even possible. But here they are at this battlefield where the American Revolution supposedly kicked off for the creation of a country called the United States of America, and the very end of the American Civil War and the continuation of that same country is about to happen. And here these Confederate soldiers are, these rebels are on this land at Alamance, where in 1771 the Regulators, also considered the rebels, are posted at this battlefield fighting here and losing. So in some way they are a little bit of a, I guess, kinship in the fact that they are both in the mindset of taking a defeat. So it's kind of neat information out here. And along this trail, like I said, there are lots and lots of signs like this along the way that tell the history here, to include the American Civil War history that happened here at Alamance. Well, it's been an interesting little trail out here. It takes you down into sort of a circle and back around out to where the monuments are. And along the way, there's those little placards that I was reading to you that tells you a little bit more about the battle that happened out here. Going out into the clearing, though, this is really the main focus of this battlefield in Alamance. And across the street from there, you'll find a visitor center that has more information if it's open. And that's usually it's usually open all the way through Saturdays for certain hours of the day. But this is a really nice field. It's very well preserved, very well taken care of by North Carolina, and a lot of good history out here to learn about. So if you ever get a chance, come on out here to Alamance Battleground in Alamance, North Carolina, and check this place out. Well, I hope you enjoyed this small little video here, this quick stop in North Carolina from on our way from Charlotte. And we'll see you out there on those battlefields in Virginia and elsewhere. Until next time, this is History with Waffles.